All right, how's everyone doing? My name is Adam Starseed Bey, and today we're going to be talking about, and what this video is entitled, is walking the line with Christ and looking at the new age, or the new age of love and light perception. Of love and light perception, combining them together, really. We all have spiritual paths and journeys we choose to go by. And some people, I got friends who are atheists. Some people don't even look into the spiritual aspect of self. Don't even look at the spiritual aspect of self. Let's see, Julie says, I'm good and yourself. Life is good. Life is good. Always learning, always growing, and always thinking outside the box. But yeah, so with the friends that I have that are atheists, they look at life differently. They view life differently. They feel that there is no spiritual connection. It is just the mind playing tricks on you. The mind playing tricks on you. But one of my key things that I always ask them and others is, what is the mind? What is the definition of the mind? But more importantly, if spirituality or getting in touch with the spirits helps you in your life and generates that change you need to better yourself and better your life, why would you want to turn that away? Why would you want to turn that away? And that's really what I want to talk about, is looking at all these things as a whole. Christ is my foundation. And when you go into the New Age community, and that's really kind of how you have to title it, Starseed. I go by Adam Starseed Bey. Starseed perception, contacting ETs, different forms of communication. When you talk about Christ, they look at it as an old doctrine or an old concept that doesn't help benefit anybody. But conveniently, no matter how many testimonies that you hear from the New Age movement and whatnot, is they always have some form of church-based background, religion background. Like myself, I was in a Christian-raised home. So I developed that kind of background. And there's other people who have had Muslim backgrounds and Catholic backgrounds and things of that nature. And because of those experiences, they have developed communication and walk in the spiritual path. They walk in a spiritual path that has opened up the doorways of seeking knowledge and seeking truth. A lot of us have went to church, have got kicked out of church, who don't feel accepted within the church because they limit themselves by human doctrine and human teachings, totally looking past what Christ laid the foundation for, or the Messiah, laid for us. I always tell people, if you read anything in the Bible, just read the birth and walk of Christ in there. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Just read that and read his perceptions of the church. He hated the church. He hated that everybody was following human doctrines. Cain and Abel, the story of Cain and Abel. Cain developed his own church. He developed his own church because he was frustrated with the inner voice within. So he wanted to generate his own perception. But it wasn't out of a loving nature. It was out of a ego-driven nature. It's deep, man. It's deep. If you really study the Bible as a whole, looking past the religion aspect, the Bible's deep, man. The Bible's deep, full of ego-driven people, manipulation, business, profit, and utilizing utilizing the love of Christ and of the Creator as a tool of business and profit, as a tool of business and profit. And one of the key things is fear. You know, people put fear into these labels and categories, and that's just kind of the religious aspect. So we'll dive into the New Age aspect. So back in 2010, I had my own personal awakening, and I've talked about this before. In December of 2009, I think it was when I saw the spiral. There was this blue spiral in the sky, and it really caught my attention. So I didn't really know too much about it, but I looked into it. But as soon as it was January, my life changed. I started doing lots of research and started doing some soul searching, getting into deep meditation again, getting back into praying again, and just really looking at things as a whole. You know, looking into the conspiracy stuff and looking at secret knowledge, secret occult knowledge that was hidden from us. And, you know, it came from the Kundalini, Merkaba, third eye, activations, and talking with ET beings and things of that nature, you know, making contact. All these concepts for having an open mind, you know, I didn't turn any of it away. I needed to explore and learn. And through all this learning, I generated a more personal connection with self. Learning how to heal myself within, not focusing so much on the outside self. Because through these deep meditations, I ended up exploring images of beings that generated fear for myself. Fear, being scared to go into a deeper meditation, because I was afraid that beings were going to take control of me, or demons. I kept feeling that I was going to open up some kind of portal or something of the dead and things of that nature. And I did have those kind of experiences. Through these deep meditation processes. I ended up communicating with spirits that were dead, and ET beings of different forms. And once I got comfortable with that, and granted, this stuff takes months. It's not just meditate and go through it, because a lot of times you just break out of it because there's just so much going on. You know, you see beings in front of your face or standing next to you. You see shadows and orbs and things of that nature in the room. You know, that's going to really turn your perception, and that fear mode kicks in, because it's the unknown. And you really have to learn how to look past the fear, because one of the key things when you do research on spirits, you really learn that they feed off of energy, that everything feeds off of energy. You go outside, you're feeding off energy. You know, you're feeding off the trees are feeding off you. Everything is connected, everything is one. We're not just a physical form of existence. There's stuff that goes beyond it. You know, you look through vibrations, you look through music, you look at people who talk to plants and things like that. You know, people who are loving and talk to their plants daily, it blossoms and grows. But if you neglect the plant, you don't water it, and you know, you don't have to talk to the plants, but you know, if you don't talk to a plant or anything, it ends up having a shorter lifespan. So that means that there is something more. You know, we communicate with everything. Everything is energy. Everything is synergy. So through that whole process, you know, I broke the boundaries. You know, I still had my foundation with Christ, and I had these new awareness, you know, utilizing deep meditation, utilizing the third eye technique, utilizing these new perceptions. So I began to explore into it more, and I began to study the Bible more again, looking at these things, going, man, was this the secret teachings that Christ taught his disciples, that taught his 12 disciples? And I really just looked at this stuff and started putting the keys together, start putting everything together. There's a scripture in there, I don't know offhand, but it says, the eye of the lamp, the eye of the lamp within you. It just says one eye, and there's many references to the eye. It's not eyes, it is the eye. The inner heaven, the inner within, looking within self. The I am perception. And that's what Christ says in there. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one goes through the Father but through me. And that is the power of I am. Because Christ wasn't stating his name. He was stating the words I am, because he knew when this stuff is written down is that we are saying to ourselves, I am. Christ said, look within. Use the word, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I have the ability to look within myself. I have the ability to seek truth. I have the ability to find my Father or the Creator within myself, to generate that balance within self. And that's what this is all about. That is what this whole journey is self-growth. We go through trials and tribulations. We go through things in life sometimes we don't understand, and a lot of times we can use the concepts of wrestling with our angels and demons, and realizing, that all of that is within us. We choose to let the demons take control over us. We choose to make our lives better. We choose this stuff. We have the ability to choose this. There is no, and granted I'm not a doctor, but there is no chemical imbalance that limits you to heal yourself. That limits you to heal yourself. That is a lie that we have been told. That is a lie we have been told. We have the ability to heal, but we have to have that will and intent to do so, and we have to have that foundation to do so. We have to look for that foundation. So many people thirst for that. They want to better their lives, but they don't know where to begin. They turn to religion and they go to churches, but they get kicked out because they think outside the box. All they do is they spread fear when they go to church. They go in, hey, I want to learn about Christ. How can Christ benefit me? You need to repent or you're going to go to hell. That's it. You just need to repent. And once you repent, you're saved. Boom, done. Get out of the church, and then we'll see you next Sunday. Right? That's kind of the basis of it. There is no healing session involved in the church, at least from what I've discovered. A lot of times they'll have prayer sessions. Hey, come up, we'll pray for you, and then be on your way. There's no, hey, I'm experiencing some stuff. I'm seeing some ET-like beings that come and make contact with me. And they're show me these sacred geometries and maybe things of the future, things of that nature. What are these blue beings? What are these gray beings? What are they? And the church will just be like, whoa, okay, man. Just follow the Bible and then you're good to go, right? Right? That's pretty much the gist of it. So that turns people away from learning on what the power of Christ, Mashiach's teachings are. Again, the churches generate human doctrine and overlook the ability of each individual person's path. Each individual person's path. And again, we are coming across the same foundation again. People are generating more church concepts, but they're entitled differently. And that is the New Age perception, whether it be team light or not bashing individuals, but just the concepts. Team light, the perception of dimensions, ET beings, looking at the perception that, that these beings that we're making contact with, that they're higher than us. They have the higher intelligence, and they are giving us this information because they love us. We're looking at these different perceptions, and people are generating curriculums and teachings of, oh, this mighty being is teaching me this stuff, or this mighty being is communicating through me. Okay, communicating through me, creating an essence of a worshiping tool. Now, and you can view that in any way. You can view that in any way. But I bring that up for the fact is that we have to start developing our personal journey. We need to listen to that inner voice, but that inner voice is not the dominating voice of us. Because we have to realize that we are the inspiration, we are the tool, we are the voice of the Spirit within us, of the love that we have. I love people, man. I love people. I want to see the best out of people. I went through a super dark time. I was super depressed. Had no friends, nothing, man. I just was by myself all the time. I would go over to people's houses. I was never invited, but I would just kind of let myself go over. And just watch and observe people, drink down their sorrows, talk bad about other people, people cheating on people with other people. It was a mess. I just watched all this stuff. I'm like, where's the love? Where's the love for people? Where is that lack of spirit, that lack of growth, that lack of, hey, man, I want to better my life. How can I better it? People feed off of other people's sorrows. I seen more people grouped together in sadness of, oh, this person broke up with me, I feel your pain, right? I feel your pain, but there was no healing involved, and I watched this, and it was extremely depressing, right? Because, I'm trying to find friends, I'm trying to find somebody to, communicate a higher aspect of life, and I can never find it. I moved away. Thought maybe life would be better if I just moved away from my town I was in and moved somewhere else. And I came across the same situations, no friends, and it just was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. And I fell so deep into the cave of depression that I just couldn't take it anymore. I really got into that state of darkness, deep darkness, where it was pretty much, do I want to live? And when I got into that deep state, that dark state, the voice of Christ spoke to me, say, hey, man, wake up. I've been here for you the whole time, man. You're looking at the physical realm too much. You're focusing too much on the outside self. You have to get back within. You have to go back within. I've always been there. Christ, that voice told me, hey man, I've always been there for you. You just had to ask. Just had to ask and listen. And I had a huge talk with Christ and just prayed and meditated, and I felt cleansed and purified. And then I moved back to the town I'm still in. And my whole life changed. I ended up moving back. I met my wife-to-be, and things changed. It wasn't easy. Life definitely isn't easy, because life is going to have ups and downs, and especially when you get into a relationship and get married, things change. But Christ answered me. Christ gave me that sense of peace and generated a structure for my life. I got married. I had kids. I had a family. I had always wanted a family, and Christ gave that to me. So, that showed me personally, not to give up on life. Because if I would have gave up on life, I would have never met my wife. I would have never met my kids. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. Being the voice that I never had. Back in 2009, 10, whatever, we had MySpace, and that was about it. But there was no kind of linking. It was our way of texting. MySpace was our texting. And granted, we still had cell phones, but it was just a different way to communicate with each other. But yeah, so when I woke up in 2010 and I had a 360 in my life, I was like, hey man, if I can pull myself out of the gutter by myself with Christ as my foundation, I need to generate that testimony out there. I need to let people know, that they're not alone. So many people go through their dark state, and a lot of people who go through that dark state don't make it out, man. They choose that escape out of this reality, and it's sad. I've throughout the years, I've seen quite a few people, some people I know, some people that I was around, and they ended their life. Too soon, and without having that sense of redemption or forgiveness. So I'm that voice. I want to be that voice. So if you guys are at that state, you'd be like, hey, Adam was talking about, going within, learning about that inner voice, and learning how to distinguish the voices as well. That's something I gotta definitely talk about too, is distinguishing the voices. But I'm gonna go ahead and read this. I'm doing some research. I want to kind of put all the scriptures together. I was looking up some faith and forgiveness scriptures, and I'm gonna kind of write them down and have a video discussion about it. But and this is amazing part about listening to the Spirit and listening to the voices, is that when you do research and when you look into the Bible or anything, the spirits will guide you into something. And sometimes it's just unexpected. So I was looking up the scripture in Mark. It was Mark 9. And I was reading it, and I was just like, okay, I don't want to read it anymore, because it always ends up turning into more research. And sure enough, I just couldn't help it. Someone just told me, just keep reading. So it was talking about going into the mountain, and I'll read it here in a second. And I'm like, you know what? Throughout the Bible, there's a lot of talk about these characters going into the mountain. The story of Moses, he went to the mountain, talked to the fig tree. And then, Christ, he went out to the desert. Things like that. They went into higher places. Jacob's ladder, a higher place. What is this higher place? Why do they always talk about the mountain? Going into the mountain. What is that? It's a secret symbolism. So I'm going to go ahead and read this, and then I'll show you what I discovered. So this is Mark 9, Mark chapter 9, 2 through 4. And I kind of changed little things around on this, so I'll kind of explain it as I read it. So, and after 6 days, Yahweh, and I did teaching on this, you can say I am as well. But Yahweh took 3 people and led them up on a high mountain alone by themselves, and he was transformed before them. And his garments became glittering, exceedingly white, like snow, such as no laundrier, which means, no matter how many times you try to wash your sheets, you can never get them clean, right? Well, this was just pure white, just pure white. There was not one speck of dirt on them. It was white like snow on earth. Nothing on earth is able to be so whitened. And there appeared to them 2 beings. And there appeared to them, it's 2 people. And I wanted to not name these people because I want you to kind of be the perception of what it would be like to be these people. So, and there appeared to them, and they were talking with Yahweh, I am. And Kepha responded, saying to Yahweh, I am, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here, and let us make 3 booths together, because he did not know what to say. So these 3 booths mean a communication. All right. For they were exceedingly afraid, and there came a cloud, a ship in the sky. If you read through the Bible, they always talk about clouds, but it's a ship in the sky, overshadowing them. And a voice came out of the ship saying, This is my son, Mashiach, Christ, the beloved, hear him. And suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone with them, but only Yahweh, I am. So, this brings into something that I never really thought about. So I wrote a little demonstration here of what that kind of experience was. Because if you listen to a lot of people's testimonies of being in contact with ETs, it's very similar to this. People go to mountains. Mount Shasta is a good example. People go to the mountains. They will see a ship, right? They will see a ship, floating cloud. And they will communicate with these beings. And it's the same way because the voices are coming from the ship, right? The voices are coming from the ship. And they're communicating telepathically, empathically. And it was just amazing. When I was reading this mountain experience, I was like, you know what? So many people have this experience now. And back then, people thought it was God. People thought it was God, but it really was just beings. But it goes deeper than that because, are we physically seeing the ships with our physical eyes, or are we telepathically seeing these ships through the mind's eye? Through the mind's eye. So would the mind's eye mean a symbolism of a mountain, climbing the mountain within yourself? Jacob's ladder is a perfect example of climbing the ladder within yourself. And you look into energy and synergy, things of that nature, and you learn on how energy flows. It flows through your feet and goes up. And then you learn about the chakra points, a perception of the chakra points. You got the root chakra, and you move up the ladder. Or you're climbing a mountain. You're climbing a mountain of self. You're learning about self-healing, self-growth, self-energy. Hey, how's it going, Nicole? Self-energy. And as you are learning more and more about yourself, as you're climbing the mountain or the ladder within, you begin to learn. And if you're from a religious background, you learn more about what Christ was telling you. You learn more about what the Bible was telling you. And then if you go into the New Age perception, you begin to learn on the energy perception. So you put it together. It's kind of like you got Buddha, the monk teachings and Christ teachings, and you put them together, put it in a blender, and There you go, and it's merging it together. It's merging doctrines together, and that's really what we have to do too, is merge doctrines together. And I have to do this with myself too. Is Nicole said, "Good, just got out of work." Oh yes, it's always nice to get off of work. It's such a relief, huh? But yeah, it's oh crap, lost my train of thought. It's uncanny that you have to think outside the box. You have to get yourself out of the human doctrine and begin to really study the book. Just like when I wrote about Mark chapter 9, I needed to take the names out because it really kind of doesn't give you that personal experience. But if you take the names out, or and just view it with a current experience, the mountain experience. So many people have testimonies about being in contact with beings in the high mountains, and that goes right with the Bible and their testimony, and it blends it together. In that we're having the same experience. We're having the same experience even today. It just brings everything together. It brings everything together. So yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought here, but I'll go ahead and show you this. I try to show you on both ways, but I drew these three characters, right? Because this was the three beings that were all generated together, and one of the things that kind of stuck out with me reading Mark is it reminded me of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, when they passed away. I think it was in episode 6, I believe, the last Star Wars episode. And it showed them in kind of a blue tint, but it kind of reminded me of the same thing, because that's what it was. I believe it was Elijah. I think it was Elijah and Moses, I think it was, because I read the Hebrew translation, so it keeps the Hebrew names. So I'm still trying to distinguish the names. But I learned that I didn't need to do that anymore. I just got to read it as an experience, so we can use it in our current lives. So yeah, when I wrote these down, I imagined the telepathic abilities that these characters were having with these beings in the ship or the cloud in the sky. And I wrote the eye of the lamp right here, and I was like, you know what? What about if I write the eye right there? And it sparked something. I was like, man, you know what that looks like? That looks just like a UFO or a disc, a round disc that we always see. It's shaped just like an eye. It's shaped just like an eye. So, through these physical experiences of ships, is it really not us telepathically telling ourselves physically, hey, you need to go within? Maybe these beings that are communicating with us, maybe they generated the ships to look like an eye to go back within, to have that sense of, hey, your communication tool is in here. Your eye is within here. Oh, hey, how's it going, Chris? The way to communicate with the Father is within. Christ is within. ET beings, the communication is within. Look within. Maybe that's why these ships look like the way they do. I don't know. I mean, we got these cigar-looking ships, so I don't know what that would represent. But but yeah, it just got me really just looking at everything as a whole. That this physical reality shows us what we need to work on. It just shows us. And through our experiences through the workplace and creating conversations with people, sometimes what we experience on the outside is really stuff that we need to work on within, or it's something that we need to work on outside. So if someone needs some healing, we can generate that healing, because not only are we generating healing for somebody else, we're generating that healing within us as well. Very powerful stuff, man. Very powerful stuff. We just have to think outside the box. There was an interview I was watching. I want to say it was True Seeker yesterday. I watched the interview today and yesterday. And they were talking about my brain, I don't remember now. But they were generating, I guess I'm not supposed to talk about it now. Dang it, I hate it when that happens. Man, what was it? Oh well, I'm sure it'll come back to me when it needs to. But yeah, learn about the inner growth and self-awareness. I'm just a blank, man. So we'll go ahead and switch gears. So let's look at the dimensional aspect of things. So we talked about the mountain and the ladder, and how our body's a representation of the mountain, and how we're wanting to climb up the ladder, back to the Father, back to the I am perception, right? So this brought along the dimensional aspects. So again, when I was doing my training through 2010, 2011, 2012, and I was working with my guides and things like that, through the mind's eye, I looked through dimensional aspects, and I was showed higher aspects of knowledge and awareness. And this was all within, man. This was all within. You know, you can call it telepathic communication or empathic communication. But I was getting inner knowledge. I didn't have to look up on the internet. I didn't have to look up human doctrines. I was being showed this stuff. I was learning within myself through these dimensions, and I just kind of broke these dimensions down. You know, 4th dimension, 5th dimension, 6th dimension, 10th dimension, so on and so forth. You know, I was just breaking these dimensions down because that's what I was taught. And when I was exploring things, breaking these things down, I was like, okay, well, these are dimensional barriers. And when I did my energy work, again, I would imagine myself pulling these rings down, bringing these dimensions down, so I could gather the information. And it was all just intertwining. You know, these are memories now. These are my memories and my personal experiences. And you know, people were talking about these dimensions, and then they just kept getting stuck. A lot of people were just getting stuck. Well, we're in the 4th dimension. We're going into the 5th dimension. And I was like, all right, so let me get this straight here. So the 4th dimension is a spirit realm, okay? And we all experience the spirit realm. We all communicate with the spirits. And I was like, all right, check. But I had a question about that. I was like, all right, so if we're communicating with spirits, why are they limited to just the 4th dimension? Because for me personally, I gained a lot of awareness and knowledge that was way beyond just a spiritual connection. It was something more. You know, these beings. I was on ships, and I was in council meetings and things of that nature. I was like, no, this 4th dimension isn't clicking, man. So then 5th dimension, instant manifestation process. I was like, okay, instant manifestation process. Okay. And I was doing research on this, and I was putting this into my life. And I was like, well, if you set your will and intent to what you want to experience, and you keep that will and intent going using your energy and meditation, things of that nature, the things are manifesting for me. So wouldn't that mean I'm already in the 5th dimension? Oh, no. Okay, so I was like, all right. And, you know, as I was communicating with my guides and spirits, things like that, you know, 12th dimension, 13th dimension, so on and so forth, I was starting to put these pieces of the puzzle together. I was like, there's something much more to this. There's something more to this. There's something more. So I just kept doing research more and more and more. And as the years went on, 2018 now? I explored it since 2010. 8 years later, I have a whole different perception on things. And the people who I've watched and stayed in tune with are still saying, we're moving up to the 5th dimension. And I'm like, what? Why are you guys still stuck in the 5th dimensional concept? Right? And just like with me, you know, I talk about Bible verses and my foundation is Christ, and they tell me, why are you stuck in human doctrine or dogma doctrine of religion? And we started clashing. It started clashing. But that's where I need to speak out with my testimony. I was like, there's something more to this. We've moved beyond the fifth dimension. It's not a realm. It's not a reality that we're trying to go to. It's the awareness that we have the ability to have a higher mindset, to have a higher mind. It's not that these beings, Orion Council and Sirius Council and all these things, are an external source. It's that, at least for me personally, I have walked the mountain. I have been face to face with the Father of creation, the Mother of creation. I've been face to face with Christ. And I've gained the knowledge and awareness within self without human doctrine to realize that things are more. That things are more. These voices are just tools to help better our lives more. There's much more to it. And it brings into the energy as well. The energy. You know how so many people are like, oh, we're getting energy waves in. We're getting energy waves in. And again, I talked about this many times, is what are these energy waves? You know, people generating, hey, this is what we're going to experience. Again, this is what we're going to experience in 6 months. Some people experience the same thing as what the viewer is telling their viewers, right? So they're on the same journey, same wavelength. Me personally, there would be some key things that I'll hear, and that means that I am on that same wavelength. So what does that mean as well? It means that we hold different energy currents on this planet, on this world, Mother Gaia. We're different energy currents. Again, and I'll explain it again, you know, I can be one of 1,000 people I'm connected to. We all share the same energy source, but we're experiencing things differently. But our energy is a conduit that's feeding into another being that could be perceived above us, and then that being has 500 people, so on and so forth, and then they're doing another energy current. It's an energy current. It's an energy flow of experience. So we will have like-minded experiences that generates our family or our tribe or our bloodline. And this brings up an interesting thing too, because like in Revelations it talks about, and if you do translations, again, it talks about in the English Bible churches, but if you do research on Hebrew, the word church doesn't exist. It's an assembly of people. So it talks about the assembly of Israel, the assembly of Jerusalem, things of that nature, but it's a representation of bloodlines. So if we use the term bloodlines and use the awareness that I gave you guys of, hey, we're all connected energy-wise. So instead of bloodline-wise, we're connected energy-wise. That means that we are connected. You know, we are connected through blood, but not through blood, but through the energy. Through the energy. You know, this brings up the thing of, you know, by his stripes we are healed, by the blood of Christ. So we can view blood as energy, as synergy. We're connected through synergy. It's not just the physical experience of our blood through our body. We're connected energetically. We're connected through the energy, through the synergy. It's, you know, it gets really complex, and it really begins, you get into that realm where it's hard to explain those boundaries. And I've kind of, you know, talked about this stuff outside the box. So a lot of people who are doing research will be like, whoa, what are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? And this is where you have to fluctuate yourself in the knowledge and awareness that you gain through your life. Utilize the tools that you learn. You learn about dimensions, break them down. Fifth dimension, break it down. Learned about the Bible, break it down. Your path and journey with Christ, break it down. Your path and journey through the Kundalini awakening or Merkaba or third eye meditation, break it down. Look at it deeper. Look at what you're learning. Don't just flow like, a lot of people go to yoga classes, meditation classes, things like that. And they learn and they practice in the physical. But to do the true work, you have to be in that sacred place. And there's a scripture that also talks about going into that sacred place, And what is that? You have to learn, all the things that you learn in your physical reality, whether you go to church or meditation classes or yoga classes, third eye activations, or any kind of activations at all. Chakra activations, whatever it may be. At the end of the day, you're going to be sitting down with yourself, with the I am. Okay, and this is why I brought that up. I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No one goes through the Father but through me. You have to do the work and sit down by yourself and pray and meditate and communicate back to the Creator, the Mother, the Father, the child of self, the Trinity. That's my discovery of the Trinity. It is the Mother, the Father, and the child. Okay? The Mother nurtures you. She protects you. She loves you. The Father supports you, teaches you life and hardship. And granted, the Mother can do the same thing. But the Father shows you the physical work, what it takes to support family. And the child is you. For we were all born innocent. But as we grow and develop, we also become our own mother and father in life. And this is why it's so important to realize as we grow through our teenage years and our young adult years that we have to get out of that rebellious stage, return as the innocence of a child, but gain the respect and knowledge of our elders, of our fathers and mothers' teachings, and be an inspiration to others, be a testimony to others. That's what this whole journey is all about, man. Is that we have to care. We have to care about our experiences. Hey, how's it going, Lori? We have to care about our experiences, and we have to care and look at our actions. Are the actions that we are showing people, are they an inspiration to children? Are they an inspiration to children? Can we do things in front of children? These teenagers and young adults will do things, they know not what they do, and they will use their freedom of expression as a way of going, hey, this is how I live my life, without realizing, hey, you got a 4-year-old child watching you. You got an 8-year-old child watching you. They're learning about life. What are you teaching them? What are you showing them? Are you showing them that physical actions and vocalized, obnoxious, way of expressing yourself is a way to get attention, right? you know, we've been children, we've thrown temper tantrums, I'm a dad, my kids are throwing temper tantrums, and you just have to be like, hey, look at what you're doing, if I did this with my daughter a lot, she would throw a temper tantrum, and I would start crying with her. I'd be like, and she'd be like, quit it. I'm like, well, that's what you're doing. That's what you're showing me you're doing. What is that showing me? What are you trying to gain? I'm not going to give in to your rebellion. I'm not going to give in to your rebellion. Look at yourself, and that's what I teach my kids. I'm like, look at yourself. You can't be just crying and complaining to get your way. You have to work at it. You have to be respectful. You have to look at life like a business, and that's what I talk about too. You have to view your life like a business. You have to organize yourself. You have to look at what works, what doesn't work. Generate business partners and things like that. Accepting people for who they are. People have different lifestyles. Accept them for who they are. As long as they are respectful to you and you're respectful to them, you can communicate with each other and work with each other. Man, life is good. Life is good. We're learning and working with each other. And that's what we need. We need to be able just to sit down and have a discussion. Not cry and complain and throw a rebellious act and have riots and protests and all this stuff. It does absolutely nothing. It does absolutely nothing. You want to make an impact in life? Look at how the courts work. See if you can build a case and go from there. Build a case in the court of law. Boom, done. That's it. You're complaining and things like that. Of course you're going to get thrown in jail. People talk so much bad stuff about law enforcement. But look at it, man. You got a rebellious person. They don't need to be on the streets, dude. You need to be respectful. You need to look at, hey, what am I trying to get across? What am I trying to get across in this protest? What am I trying to get across? I've watched people who went into protests and things like that, and they try to have just a well-balanced perception of things, and they just spit that person out. They're like, well, if you're not part of the cause, you're against the cause. Get out. And I'm like, wow, if you're not part of the cause, you're against the cause. You can't have an open mind. You can't do anything. You just have to be a follower of the cause. You have to be a follower of the cause. and that's what we're all going through. That's what we're all going through. Just like I talked about in the couple of videos before, I had a conversation about, what this blue blood moon was about. And they're like, man, this is going to be some great changes. Well, what about if the moon is artificial? What about if this is a distraction? What about these things? Well, look at the astrology. Everything all lines up. Okay, that's great. But we're generating some kind of, what are you giving the viewers? You're just giving the viewers, hey, things are lining up. All right, what do we do with this energy? What do we do with this energy? Well, you look within and you just find your answers. Very, very bland concept. We have to just sit down and just look. Be like, hey man, people are thirsty for knowledge. People are thirsty for knowledge. And you can see it every day. You see it with people watching my videos, you see it with podcasts and other people's videos. People watch, people respond, people communicate and leave feedback and just have so many questions, and they just want answers. They just want answers, but they're physical answers. And a lot of people just don't give their viewers the response of, hey, how are you doing today? How are you? Just like Edgar here just popped in. How's it going, brother? How's Edgar today? How are you doing today? What are you seeking in life? Do you know about forgiveness? Do you know about things like that? We have to start touching base with our viewers. If you're a viewer right now, and if you make videos and podcasts, we have to start communicating with each other, looking at what's missing, and how can we join these forces together. How can we join people who have a foundation with Christ, like myself? How can we join forces with people who are in contact with ET beings? I'm in contact with ET beings. There we go. We have a shared experience, but I also have the foundation of Christ. And people can be like, well, how can you have a foundation with Christ and ETs? There we go. Edgar's here's saying he's driving and watching. Hey, Edgar, make sure you're watching the road, man. But we got to blend this stuff together. All right, Kundalini activations, going into the Merkaba, learning about dimensions. How can we blend this stuff together? We got to blend this stuff together. We got to throw this stuff in a blender, and we got to quit dividing ourselves. We got to be open-minded. Talk about the Bible, people turn you off. Talk about Kundalini and activation, the Bible people turn things off. So much dividing. And one of the things that really, here, let me look and see how much I've been talking. Oh man, I've already talked for almost an hour. All right, I'm going to push stop on this and then push record again, because like I said, I don't know if YouTube does more than an hour or not, so I don't want to lose this. So I'm going to push stop and I'll be right back. So